I wanted to talk briefly about what we use in our garden for organic disease and pest prevention and control. With these 4 products, I can pretty much control most pests and diseases in my garden organically. So for insects, honestly, my first line of defense is my hands. I like to pick the bugs off the plants if possible, if the infestation isn't too bad, because it's just better for the plants, better for the environment if I'm not spraying anything. So for large caterpillars or caterpillars that appear in lower numbers, I just pick them off and drop them into a container with some soap and water. And that pretty much controls things like tomato hornworms or any larger caterpillar. Now, army worms are a different story because, like their name implies, they appear in very large numbers and you just can't manually pick them all. I will pick some and drop them into the soap, but I have to pull out the BT for the army worms. BT is a bacteria that's suspended in this liquid, and this is a concentrated product. You mix it with some water and spray the foliage of the plant. And what happens is the caterpillars ingest the bacteria and they stop eating. Therefore, they stop destroying your plants. So this is my go-to product for caterpillars that I just can't control manually. For bacterial and fungal diseases like powdery mildew and blight, I use this copper spray or hydrogen peroxide. I tend to try hydrogen peroxide first just because it's really gentle and you don't have to worry about getting it on your skin when you're spraying and stuff like that. So I dilute regular 3% hydrogen peroxide that you can get at any drugstore in some water at a ratio of anywhere between 1 and 4, 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water, and 1 and 8, depending on the severity of the disease. If I have a major outbreak of some powdery mildew or blight or something like that, I will do it closer to the 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. If it's just a little bit here and there, I might do closer to 1 and 8. You should always test spray a plant when you're using a new product, just to make sure that the plant you're spraying it on doesn't have any leaf burning or anything like that when you apply it. But I haven't had issues with hydrogen peroxide, especially diluted to those concentrations. If hydrogen peroxide doesn't work, then I pull out the copper spray. And this comes in a few different brands, and we will link in the description to some of these products, but these are just what I have on hand right now. So the copper spray is kind of the big guns for the disease, the bacterial and fungal diseases that you'll have in your garden. So this is also diluted, and it has instructions for the concentration that you mix it up. So that's how I handle diseases. Now, bugs other than caterpillars, again, I try to manually remove as many as possible or squish as many as I can. But if I can't control an insect population manually, I will use neem oil. Now, I try really hard not to use neem oil because it can also sometimes harm some beneficial insects. But if I really have to, I'll pull out the neem oil. And when applying neem oil, you always want to apply it in the evening. If you apply it in the morning or midday, the sun can actually burn your plant leaves because this isn't oil. So always apply in the evening to let it fully dry before the sun comes up the next day. So I can pretty much control all diseases and pests pretty well with these 4 products in my garden. But when growing organically, it's never going to be foolproof. So what I do to account for that is I plant a few extra plants. So if I lose a few to diseases or pests, it's not that big of a deal. I know I'm still going to have enough of a harvest to feed my family. And if I end up not needing those few extra that I planted, then I just have more to share with friends. So another thing that I do is I succession plant. So here in tropical climates like where we live, we do battle a lot with fungal and bacterial diseases. They spread quickly, they come on early in the season, and it's just kind of an uphill battle. So what I do is I succession plant things that I want a longer harvest of. So like squash, for instance, I will start some in the beginning of the season, and then I'll do another crop rotation at the end of the season. Things like beans, I succession plant. I plant some early in the season, some in the middle of the season, and some at the end of the season. And then that gives me a bean harvest pretty much through the whole summer. Even if I start losing the first rotation to a disease or a pest, I still have the second and third. So succession planting is a great way to combat diseases and pests in your organic garden. So that's pretty much what I do, and so far, so good.